Welcome to BBC News. I'm Regid Ahmed. Our top stories. With more than 3/4 of the votes counted in Australia's general election, the opposition Labor Party seems to be making gains over the governing coalition. Both leaders, though, are upbeat.
There is one thing for sure. The Labor Party is back.
We can have every confidence that we will form a coalition majority government in the next parliament.
Hillary Clinton is questioned by the FBI about her use of personal emails while Secretary of State. The US presidential contender says she's done nothing wrong. In a huge upset at Wimbledon, the American Sam Querrey knocks out the defending champion Novak Djokovic in the third round. And Germany make it through to the Euro 2016 semi-finals after beating Italy on penalties. Australians are waking up to a country in limbo after their general election failed to produce a clear winner. With more than 10 million votes counted, the result is still too close to call and may not be known for several days. Results show a swing away from Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull's governing Conservative coalition party. The current vote tally is showing the Australian Labor Party holding a slender lead. The magic number is 76. That's how many seats either party needs to take power. Right now, though, the polls are indicating neither will win that many, meaning there could potentially be a hung parliament.
I can report that based on the advice I have from the party officials, we can have every confidence that we will form a coalition majority government in the next parliament. It is a very, very close count.
3 years after the Liberals came to power in a landslide, they have lost their mandate. And Mr. Turnbull's economic program, such as it was, has been rejected by the people of Australia.
Well, the BBC's Phil Mercer joins us now from Melbourne. Phil, this is such a close result. Did it take people by surprise, or did we expect this?
No, this is a shock. Undoubtedly, Australians will be waking up today. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here in Melbourne to start digesting the news that they're not sure who their next government will be or how that new administration will be formed. The result, as you say, is too close to call. Both major parties, the governing coalition of Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister, and his Labor opposition rival Bill Shorten, say that they're pretty confident that given the opportunity they will be able to form a working majority government. But at the moment it is too close to call, and it could well come down to what's known here as pre-polling votes. These are postal votes that quite a few, several million Australians actually did before polling day, so they have still to be counted. But such is the way that the system works here, the electoral authorities won't start the count again until Tuesday, so we won't know for a few days exactly how the chips are going to fall.
Phil, Brexit was such a big issue in the UK. Did it have any impact towards the end of this election campaign?
There are many issues at the core of this very long election campaign in Australia, the longest for almost 50 years. Domestic issues, health and education, also concerns about climate change and immigration. But right at the core of this campaign was the economy. And of course, the Brexit vote coming just over a week before Australia's federal election did put the issue of economic security right at the heart of this campaign. And we heard from Bill Shorten here in Melbourne late last night that Australia had rejected the Prime Minister's economic plan. Whether Mr Shorten will get the opportunity to try to form a government, we'll have to wait to see. History, though, has been made in this election. The first Aboriginal, the first Indigenous woman to be elected to the lower house, the House of Representatives. That result has been confirmed. So Linda Burney, a well-known politician from New South Wales, has made history as the rest of the country scratches its head and wonders who will form the next government.
Phil, Australian politicians like to talk a lot about having a mandate from the public, and the Labor Party has been talking about that tonight. But what does this result say about either of the major parties' authority to implement their policies once we know who can form government?
Well, there's certainly been a swing, perhaps you could call it a backlash, against the governing Liberal National Coalition of Malcolm Turnbull. We understand that swing is around 3%, so quite significant. In the states of Tasmania and South Australia, it seems that Mr Turnbull's party has received a bit of an electoral beating there too. And there seems to be a general swing against the major parties. We are understanding that when the final results are in, they'll probably show that there have been record numbers of voters choosing the minor parties and independents. And it is those minor parties and independent candidates who will be the kingmakers, you'd imagine, once this election is finally sorted and the next government is formed.
Phil Mercer there in Melbourne. Phil, thank you very much. Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton has been questioned by the FBI about the use of a personal email server while she was US Secretary of State. A spokesman for Clinton said she gave the interview voluntarily. Mrs. Clinton's use of a private email account whilst she was in government has dogged her bid for the White House, although legal experts say a criminal prosecution is unlikely. Mrs. Clinton, who has always maintained she did nothing wrong, returned home soon after the questioning, which lasted for over 3 hours. Our correspondent in Washington, Laura Bicker, sent this report.
Hillary Clinton used 2 email accounts when she was Secretary of State. One was an unprotected home account, and her critics say she could have put hundreds of state secrets, classified documents at risk of going out into the public domain. She's always said she did nothing wrong. In fact, she does wish that she could go back and do things differently, but she says it was allowed at the time. Now, the FBI launched an investigation, and this morning Hillary Clinton went with them voluntarily to be interviewed. She was interviewed for 3.5 hours. Her staff have already been questioned as part of this investigation. Now, when it comes to the legal aspect of this, certainly experts say that it is unlikely that charges will be brought. It is, of course, possible, but legal experts believe it is unlikely. I think what the Clinton campaign will be looking out for is the political ramifications, the political fallout. Hillary Clinton has put herself forward as this safe, experienced pair of hands, as opposed to her opponent Donald Trump, who she says is controversial, he says is outlandish. So when it comes to the two, she's trying to say, look, I am the one that you can rely on. Being questioned by the FBI for 3.5 hours will not help her case. Her Republican opponents already say she's untrustworthy. Donald Trump uses the nickname Crooked Hillary any chance he gets. And in just a few weeks, Hillary Clinton will stand on the Democratic platform at the convention and be formally announced as their nominee. In that time, the FBI may conclude its investigation. She might even get a chance to put it behind her personally. But politically, her opponents will never let her forget it.
Laura Bicker there. The Jewish writer and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel has died at the age of 87. He wrote extensively of his imprisonment in Nazi camps, including his memoir Night, based on his experiences as a teenager in Auschwitz, where he lost his mother, father and younger sister. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1986 for his role in speaking out against violence, repression and racism, and he died at his home in New York City. Well, Mark, who co-founded the Holocaust Art Restitution Project, knew Elie, and he joins me now from Washington. Mark Mazerovsky, first of all, can you give me a sense of what he was like as a person?
Oh, he's very approachable, very warm, a little bit in the clouds, but that comes from being more of a poetic individual than a politician. So, I met him very briefly. It was decades ago, literally, at a world gathering of Holocaust survivors. But he's been an extremely influential voice for survivors around the world. And, it's a great loss, but at the same time, he basically pioneered the whole idea of memory, remembrance, and he was the embodiment of what it was like to survive one of the worst tragedies in human history.
Mark, he must have gone through unimaginable experiences during the Holocaust. How did he view those experiences as he got older, and how did he rationalize them?
Well, from an outsider's viewpoint, he put pen to paper, literally, and produced some incredible narratives, which recounted his ordeals, but he did so in such a way that they were eminently approachable, accessible to millions of people, and that's why his books are taught in middle schools and high schools, at least in the United States, and I'm sure they're read all over Europe and in other countries. So he basically was able to lend a very public voice to what it was like to survive a genocide.
What do you think his legacy is going to be now, given he's left behind such a body of work?
Well, his legacy speaks for itself. He left a body of work. He's been a constant voice against anti-Semitism and for justice around the world, not only for victims of the Holocaust, but also for victims of other genocides. And in that sense, he's rather unique. So his voice may have gotten lost somewhere in the ether because of the conflicts and the way that the world is slumbering into chaos these days. But he is that voice that resonates and reminds us of what it takes to endure and to always try to occupy the moral high ground and the ethical high ground when we're faced with prejudice, bigotry, and hatred.
Mark Mazerovsky, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts on Elie Wiesel. In Euro 2016, Germany are through to the semi-finals after beating Italy in a penalty shootout in the last 8 of the competition. The match ended 1-1 after extra time in a tense and error-prone penalty shootout. Germany eventually prevailed 6-5. Joe Linsky reports. Stay with us on BBC News, still to come. We hear more about this man, Sam Querrey, who's caused a huge upset at Wimbledon, knocking out Novak Djokovic in the 3rd round. This is BBC News, I'm Regid Ahmed. The latest headlines. With around 3/4 of the votes counted in Australia's general election, the governing coalition appears to have lost ground to the opposition Labor Party. The US presidential contender Hillary Clinton has been questioned by the FBI about her use of an insecure personal email account when she was Secretary of State. The Bangladeshi Prime Minister has pleaded with Islamic extremists to stop killing in the name of religion after 20 people, including 9 Italians, were murdered in Dhaka. Foreign nationals were specifically targeted at a cafe last night. 6 militants were killed, with 13 hostages freed. From Dhaka, Sanjoy Majumdar reports. Tens of thousands of people have taken part in a rally in London to demonstrate against Britain's decision to leave the European Union. Many said they were there to voice discontent with the referendum result. Some Leave voters said the rally was undemocratic. Our correspondent Sangeeta Maiska reports.
The streets of the capital thick with protesters, good-natured but passionate and desperate to be heard. They had responded to a single invitation on social media that went viral.
It was a very slim majority. It could potentially give us serious financial harm in the future. It could lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom, and it could rob so many opportunities for so many other people.
From Hyde Park, families, the young, those fearful of the impact of Brexit, marched to Parliament Square. They questioned the very validity of a referendum whose result went against them.
What would you say to the 17 million that voted Britain should exit the EU? They too have a democratic right.
They were lied to. The very next day, a lot of people voted because they thought that 350 million was going to go to NHS.
Here at the heart of the rally, everyone is united about one thing, that Britain has made the wrong decision to leave the European Union. But ask them what they want done next, and there's a spectrum of opinion.
And around the corner, these men, one voted Brexit, one voted Remain, shared a dim view of the protest.
So you voted to stay, you voted out.
I voted to stay, and I respect my vote, but I don't respect people who want to delete the vote because the vote is democratic.
It's done now, and that's it, we're finished. And you get this down in London, but you won't get it in the north.
The police have yet to confirm final numbers, but this is the biggest protest against the referendum outcome to date. Sangeeta Maiska, BBC News.
Well, Britain's vote to leave the EU has sparked concern across Europe. A senior tourism official in Greece has told the BBC that 200,000 fewer British journalists may travel there next year because of the financial fallout. It will only add to concerns about the fragile Greek economy, as Richard Galpin reports. A dramatic day at Wimbledon, where number one seed and reigning champion Novak Djokovic has crashed out of the men's tournament in the third round. He lost to big serving American Sam Querrey in 4 sets. Elsewhere in Britain's Andy Murray is safely through to round 4 after beating Australia's John Millman. Alex Gulrajani has been following the day's action. Well, now you can't teach an old dog new tricks, they say, but apparently you can teach a lioness. A farmer in Dagestan is using one as a sheepdog to help round up his flock. He was given the lioness as a present when she was a young cub. He then found the feline called Mashka playing with the sheep and decided to train her. He says if she becomes too aggressive, he's built an open-air enclosure for her. But for the moment, she eats only beef, around 2 kilos a day. Very sweet. And let's just remind you of our top story. With more than 3/4 of the votes counted in Australia's general election, the opposition Labor Party seems to be making gains over the governing coalition. Well, that's it for now, but you can get in touch with me and most of the team on Twitter. I'm at Regid Ahmed. See you soon.
Looking at our last satellite picture from the last 24 hours, we can see some pretty intense thunderstorms from Uganda and Ethiopia right across, certainly the Gulf of Guinea in towards